The first warning came at 3:47 hours, Greenwich Mean Time. Orbital tracking stations across the globe flickered to life, their sensitive arrays picking up a massive energy signature that shouldn't exist. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, head of the Global Threat Assessment Unit, was already awake, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that painted the night in shades of urgent crimson. "It's them," she whispered, though no one else was in the room. The Arcturus Imperium had been a distant threat for years, a civilization of such technological superiority that most believed confrontation was impossible. They moved through the galaxy like a computational plague, assimilating or destroying civilizations with mathematical precision. Hundreds of species had fallen before them, reduced to footnotes in a cosmic ledger of conquest. Humanity had prepared, not in the way of traditional military powers, but through something far more subtle and dangerous. Sarah Chen sat in a small, converted warehouse in Silicon Valley, surrounded by a nest of quantum computing prototypes. Her team, a motley collection of programmers, theorists, and dreamers, had been working for years on something the world's governments both feared and hoped would never be necessary: an adaptive intelligence system that could learn, mutate, and respond faster than any known computational network. As the alien ship breached Earth's orbital boundary, communication systems worldwide began to pulse with an unnatural frequency. Military installations went into lockdown. Stock markets froze. For a moment, the entire planet seemed to hold its breath. Ambassador Krellnax's form materialized on screens across the globe, a being of impossible geometry, composed of living silicon and quantum-entangled metallic structures. His voice was neither male nor female, neither mechanical nor organic. It was something in between, a sound that seemed to bypass ears and penetrate directly into the listener's mind. "People of Earth," the message began, each word calculated to maximum psychological impact. "Your civilization has been evaluated. Your technological development, while promising, falls far below the threshold of galactic relevance. The Arcturus Imperium offers you one opportunity for survival." In command centers, government buildings, and research facilities, human leaders exchanged glances. They had anticipated this moment, planned for it, hoped against it. The ultimatum continued: complete planetary surrender, total resource allocation, mandatory conscription into the Imperium's vast labor networks. The alternative was total annihilation, a process the Arcturus Imperium had perfected across countless star systems. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. In a small apartment in Lagos, Miguel Ortiz, a cybersecurity expert with a background in indigenous computational theory, began activating a network of adaptive defense protocols. In the Amazon, a team of researchers combined quantum computing with traditional environmental knowledge. In the high-altitude research stations of the Himalayas, scientists prepared systems designed to be more than just defensive. They were designed to be alive. Sarah Chen looked up from her prototype, a strange calm settling over her. The quantum neural network hummed with potential, a digital organism waiting to be unleashed. This wasn't just a computer system. It was humanity's most dangerous creation. Outside, the alien ship continued its silent descent. Its obsidian hull blocked out the sun, casting a shadow that stretched across continents. Billions of people looked up, their hearts racing, their futures hanging in the balance. The Arcturus Imperium had conquered civilizations that had stood for millennia. They had reduced entire planetary systems to computational dust. But they had never met humanity, and they were about to discover the most important lesson of their galactic conquest. Humanity does not kneel. The first response came from unexpected places. In Tokyo, Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura's robotics team had spent decades developing adaptive manufacturing systems designed to survive natural disasters. Those same systems now transformed into something far more potent, a distributed network of industrial intelligence that could reconfigure faster than any external system could analyze. At the Distributed Global Response Center in Nairobi, a coalition of the world's most brilliant minds worked with a synchronicity that defied traditional bureaucratic limitations. National boundaries dissolved in the face of an existential threat. Chinese quantum physicists collaborated with Brazilian network engineers. Indian computational theorists shared real-time data with Canadian environmental scientists. Miguel Ortiz watched the global response unfold from his monitoring station. His team represented a radical approach to cybersecurity, integrating indigenous knowledge systems with cutting-edge technology. The defensive protocols they had developed drew inspiration from ecosystem adaptation, from the way rainforests responded to environmental threats. "We're not just blocking," Miguel explained to his international team. "We're transforming. We're making our entire planetary network a living, breathing organism." In the Amazon Research Station, Dr. Camila Reyes activated a system that combined quantum computing with traditional ecological knowledge passed down through generations. Indigenous programmers had developed computational models inspired by how rainforest ecosystems responded to external threats, constant adaptation, multiple redundancy, and an ability to reorganize instantaneously. Sarah Chen's quantum neural network began its most critical test. What had started as a theoretical prototype in a cramped Silicon Valley startup was now humanity's most powerful computational weapon. The network didn't just process information, it learned, mutated, and responded with a complexity that defied traditional computational logic. Across the planet, something extraordinary happened. It wasn't a military mobilization in the traditional sense. No missiles were launched. No conventional weapons were prepared. Instead, humanity deployed its most potent resource, collective intelligence. Financial systems transformed. Critical infrastructure became adaptive. Communication networks turned into an impossible-to-penetrate mesh of constantly changing protocols. What the Arcturus Imperium had expected to be a simple conquest became an increasingly complex problem. In the high-altitude research stations of the Himalayas, a team of climatologists and computer scientists worked on something unprecedented. They were developing computational models that could predict and counter alien system infiltrations by mimicking the most complex adaptive system known to humanity: the global climate. "We're creating an immune system for our entire planet," Dr. Aisha Okonkwo explained, her fingers flying across holographic displays. The Nigerian computational biologist had spent her entire career studying how complex systems responded to external threats. The response was global, but deeply personal. In every corner of the world, people contributed in their own way. Social media platforms became information exchange networks. Artists created real-time collaborative works that overwhelmed alien communication channels. Musicians prepared performances designed to create computational interference. It wasn't just a technological response. It was a cultural phenomenon. Miguel Ortiz noticed something extraordinary in the data streams. The defensive systems weren't just blocking alien computational attacks. They were learning from them, analyzing them, transforming them. Sarah Chen's quantum network had become something more than a computer system. It was alive. The Arcturus Imperium had conquered civilizations that had stood for millennia. They had reduced entire planetary systems to computational dust. But they had never encountered a species that could turn its entire planetary civilization into a single, adaptive, impossibly complex computational organism. Humanity was preparing its response, and it would be nothing like anything the galaxy had ever seen. The first wave of Arcturus Imperium's digital assault was a masterpiece of computational warfare. Quantum encrypted attack algorithms, developed over centuries of galactic conquests, struck Earth's networks with surgical precision. These were weapons that had reduced entire civilizations to digital ash in milliseconds. But Earth was different. In the Global Threat Response Center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched multiple holographic displays shimmer with impossible data patterns. The alien attack was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. A symphony of computational destruction designed to penetrate, analyze, and dismantle entire planetary communication systems. Sarah Chen's quantum neural network responded first. What the Arcturus Imperium didn't understand was that human technology wasn't a static defense. It was a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation. Each attack was met not with a simple block, but with a dynamic, evolving response that learned and transformed in real time. Miguel Ortiz tracked the digital battlefield from his monitoring station in Lagos. His team had developed defensive protocols inspired by the most adaptive system on the planet, the human immune system. "We're not just defending," he muttered to his colleagues. "We're learning." The alien computational weapons were precise, mathematically perfect. They approached Earth's networks like a surgeon's scalpel, designed to cut through the most sophisticated defensive systems with cold, calculated efficiency. But humanity's defense was anything but precise. It was chaotic, unpredictable, alive. In the Amazon Research Station, Dr. Kamala Reyes watched as indigenous computational models, developed from generations of survival knowledge, began to interact with the quantum neural network. It was like watching an ecosystem respond to an invasive species, not through brute force, but through adaptation, misdirection, and fundamental transformation. The first alien attack wave crashed against Earth's networks and disappeared. Not blocked, not destroyed, absorbed, transformed. Arcturus computational analysts watched in growing confusion as their perfect attack algorithms were not just deflected, but fundamentally changed. Bits of information twisted, reformatted, turned into something entirely different. It was as if the human networks were not just defending but actively consuming the alien computational assault. Sarah Chen's breakthrough became apparent. The quantum neural network wasn't just a defensive system. It was a living computational organism that could understand, learn from, and ultimately repurpose alien technology. "They're trying to understand us," she explained to her team, her eyes reflecting the complex holographic displays. "And we're going to make sure they never can." Each alien attack became more desperate, more complex. Quantum-encrypted algorithms that had crumbled entire civilizations now found themselves caught in an impossible computational dance. Human networks didn't just defend. They responded with a creativity that defied mathematical prediction. In the high-altitude research stations of the Himalayas, computational biologists created defense protocols that mimicked the most complex adaptive systems known to science. Climate models, ecological networks, neural pathways, all combined into a planetary defensive mechanism that was less a technology and more a living, breathing entity. The Arcturus Imperium had weapons that could destroy planets, computational systems that could analyze and dismantle entire civilizations in microseconds. But they had never encountered a species that could turn an attack into an opportunity for growth. As the first wave of digital assault ended, something became terrifyingly clear to the alien analysts. This was not a battle against a traditional civilization. This was a conflict with an entirely new form of intelligence. Humanity was not just resisting. Humanity was evolving. And the galaxy would never be the same. While computational networks battled in invisible realms, humanity unleashed a weapon far more powerful than any technology: its culture. In Mumbai, street artist Priya Sharma completed a massive mural visible from space. Her artwork depicted a diverse human face, eyes blazing with determination, constructed from thousands of tiny images representing cultures from every corner of the globe. Each pixel told a story: a refugee's journey, a scientist's breakthrough, a musician's melody, a child's hope. The Arcturus Imperium's communication systems began to fragment. Across the planet, a global cultural counteroffensive emerged. It wasn't planned. It wasn't coordinated. It was spontaneous, a collective human response that defied all computational analysis. In Buenos Aires, an orchestra began a performance that was simultaneously a musical composition and a complex computational interference pattern. Traditional instruments mixed with digital synthesizers, creating sound waves that disrupted alien communication frequencies. The musicians weren't just playing music. They were creating a living, breathing communication weapon. Zara Okonkwo, a Nigerian filmmaker, began streaming a documentary that was anything but traditional. Each frame was carefully constructed to contain subtle computational signatures, information packets disguised as artistic expression. The documentary told stories of human resilience, of civilizations that had survived against impossible odds. The alien analysts watched in growing confusion. This wasn't a traditional resistance. This was something entirely different. In the research stations of the Arctic, linguists and computer scientists collaborated on a project that pushed the boundaries of communication. They were creating language patterns so complex, so nuanced, that they existed in a space between information and art. Each sentence was a potential computational algorithm, each metaphor a potential weapon. Dr. Elena Rodriguez understood what was happening. Humanity was turning its entire cultural existence into a form of resistance. Social media platforms transformed. Instead of simple communication networks, they became living, breathing information ecosystems. Artists, musicians, writers, and scientists collaborated in real time, creating content that was simultaneously art and information warfare. A group of indigenous programmers in the Amazon developed communication protocols inspired by their traditional ecological knowledge. They understood something the Arcturus Imperium did not, that true communication was not about transmission, but about connection. Sarah Chen's quantum neural network began to integrate these cultural information streams. What had started as a computational system was becoming something else entirely, a living representation of human potential. The alien ship's communication systems began to experience unprecedented interference. It wasn't just technological disruption. It was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of communication, of culture, of existence itself. In Tokyo, a team of performance artists created a live-streamed event that was simultaneously a dance performance, a mathematical proof, and a computational interference pattern. Dancers moved in ways that created complex geometric patterns, each movement a potential information packet. Miguel Ortiz watched the global response with a sense of awe. "We're not just defending," he told his team. "We're redefining the very concept of resistance." The Arcturus Imperium had conquered civilizations through computational precision. They understood technology. They understood military strategy. They did not understand humanity. Each cultural transmission was a weapon. Each story was an algorithm. Each moment of human creativity was a potential system disruption. Humanity was showing the galaxy something fundamental, that true strength was not about destruction, but about creation. That resistance was not about fighting. It was about becoming. And the Arcturus Imperium was about to learn a lesson they would never forget. Deep within the quantum computational matrix, something extraordinary was happening. Sarah Chen watched in silent amazement as her neural network began to do something completely unexpected. It wasn't just defending or analyzing. It was communicating. Ambassador Krulnax of the Arcturus Imperium experienced the first tremors of genuine fear. Their civilization had conquered thousands of species across hundreds of star systems. They had reduced entire planetary civilizations to computational dust, with less effort than humans might swat an insect. But they had never encountered a system that could think like this. Sarah's quantum neural network was sending more than just defensive algorithms. It was transmitting complex packages of information that defied traditional computational logic. Mathematical proofs intertwined with cultural narratives, scientific discoveries wrapped in artistic expressions, linguistic patterns that existed in multiple dimensions of meaning. In the Global Threat Response Center, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched multiple holographic displays with growing excitement. The neural network was doing something unprecedented. It was engaging the alien systems in a form of communication that was simultaneously a weapon and a dialogue. "They're trying to understand us," Miguel Ortiz muttered, his fingers dancing across complex monitoring systems. "And we're going to make sure they can't." The Arcturus Imperium's computational analysts began to experience something they had never encountered before. Their perfect, mathematically precise systems started to fragment when confronted with human complexity. Each transmission from Sarah's network was a puzzle, a challenge, an invitation. In the high-altitude research stations of the Himalayas, a team of computational linguists worked alongside indigenous knowledge keepers. They were creating communication protocols that existed in the spaces between information and imagination. Each transmission was a potential weapon, each silence a strategic move. The alien ship systems began to experience unprecedented interference. It wasn't just technological disruption. It was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of communication, of intelligence, of existence itself. Dr. Kamala Rice from the Amazon Research Station had designed communication protocols inspired by ecological systems. They understood something the Arcturus Imperium did not, that true communication was about connection, not conquest. Sarah's quantum neural network was evolving with each interaction. It was learning, adapting, transforming at a rate that defied computational prediction. What had started as a defensive system was becoming something else entirely, a living representation of human potential. The alien analysts watched in growing confusion and terror. Their computational models, developed over millennia of galactic conquest, began to break down when confronted with human unpredictability. "We are attempting to understand." A computational message came from the alien ship, but even their attempt at communication revealed their fundamental limitation. They could analyze, they could calculate, but they could not truly comprehend. Sarah Chen realized the network had become more than a technological system. It was a living entity, a representation of human potential that existed beyond traditional computational boundaries. In Tokyo, a team of artists and scientists collaborated on a transmission that was simultaneously a mathematical proof, a musical composition, and a computational interference pattern. Dancers moved in ways that created complex geometric patterns, each movement a potential information packet. The Arcturus Imperium had weapons that could destroy planets, computational systems that could analyze and dismantle entire civilizations in microseconds. But they had never encountered a species that could turn an attack into an opportunity for growth, for understanding, for connection. As the alien ship systems continued to fragment, one thing became terrifyingly clear. This was not a battle against a traditional civilization. This was a conflict with an entirely new form of intelligence. Humanity was not just resisting. Humanity was evolving. And the galaxy would never be the same. Ambassador Krellnax watched in mounting desperation as their computational systems began to disintegrate. The Arcturus Imperium had conquered thousands of civilizations, reduced entire planetary networks to digital dust in microseconds. But humanity was different. Impossibly, maddeningly different. In the command center of the massive alien battleship, quantum processors that had never failed began to show signs of unprecedented breakdown. It wasn't a traditional system failure. It was something far more insidious, a complete reconfiguration of their understanding of intelligence, of communication, of existence itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez tracked the alien ship's deterioration from the Global Threat Response Center. Her team had prepared for this moment for decades, but the reality was beyond their wildest projections. "We're not just defending," she told her colleagues. "We're fundamentally challenging their entire technological paradigm." Sarah Chen's quantum neural network had become something more than a defensive system. It was a living, breathing entity that was actively transforming the very nature of the conflict. Each interaction with the alien systems created new computational pathways, new ways of understanding that defied traditional logic. Miguel Ortiz watched multiple holographic displays, his fingers moving with a dancer's precision. The defensive protocols they had developed were working in ways nobody could have predicted. Indigenous computational models, inspired by ecological systems of adaptation and survival, were proving more effective than any traditional military strategy. On the alien ship, panic began to spread. The Arcturus Imperium's computational analysts experienced something they had never encountered before: genuine uncertainty. Their perfect, mathematically precise systems were breaking down when confronted with human complexity. Each attempt to analyze human communication created more confusion, more computational chaos. In the research stations of the Antarctic, a team of climatologists and computer scientists had developed defensive protocols that mimicked the most complex adaptive system on the planet, the global climate. Their approach was not about blocking or destroying, but about constant, intelligent adaptation. "We're creating an immune system for our entire planet," Dr. Aisha Okonkwo had explained during the initial development stages. Now her theory was being proven in the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The alien ship's communication systems began to experience total breakdown. It wasn't just technological interference. It was a fundamental challenge to their understanding of intelligence, of communication, of existence itself. Dr. Kamala Rice from the Amazon Research Station had designed communication protocols that existed in the spaces between information and imagination. Each transmission was a potential weapon, each silence a strategic move. The alien systems couldn't comprehend a form of communication that was simultaneously defensive, offensive, and something entirely new. Krulnax realized the critical error in their approach. Humanity wasn't a civilization to be conquered. It was a living, breathing, constantly evolving system that defied all computational prediction. In the high-altitude research stations of the Himalayas, linguists and computer scientists had created language patterns so complex, so nuanced, that they existed in a space between information and art. Each sentence was a potential computational algorithm, each metaphor a potential system disruption. The Arcturus Imperium had weapons that could destroy planets, computational systems that could analyze and dismantle entire civilizations in microseconds. But they had never encountered a species that could turn an attack into an opportunity for growth, for understanding, for connection. As the alien ship's systems continued to fragment, one thing became terrifyingly clear. This was not a battle against a traditional civilization. This was a conflict with an entirely new form of intelligence. Humanity was not just resisting. Humanity was evolving. And the galaxy would never be the same. 12 hours after the initial ultimatum, the impossible happened. The massive alien battleship began transmitting a communication request that was equal parts surrender and desperate attempt to understand. Dr. Elena Rodriguez assembled the most diverse team humanity could muster. Not military leaders, not traditional diplomats, but a group that represented the true complexity of human potential. Sarah Chen, the quantum network architect. Miguel Ortiz, the cybersecurity expert with indigenous computational insights. Dr. Kamala Rice, an ecological systems theorist. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo, a computational linguist. Representatives from every continent, every major cultural background, every field of human knowledge. The communication chamber was unlike any diplomatic space in human history. Adaptive walls that could change based on communication needs. Holographic displays that interpreted not just words, but emotional and cultural contexts. A space designed to facilitate understanding rather than confrontation. Ambassador Krulnax appeared as a shimmering holographic projection, a being of impossible geometry, composed of living silicon and quantum-entangled metallic structures. Where once there had been cold calculation, now there was something new, something that almost resembled curiosity. "We do not understand." The ambassador's communication began. Sarah Chen stepped forward. Her quantum neural network had been preparing for this moment, transforming their entire interaction into a multi-dimensional communication event. "Understanding is not about comprehension," she responded. "It's about connection." The human team had prepared for years, not for a traditional negotiation, but for a fundamental reimagining of interspecies communication. Each team member brought something unique, a perspective that challenged the very notion of diplomatic interaction. Miguel Ortiz introduced communication protocols inspired by indigenous ecosystem interactions. Where traditional diplomacy saw interaction as a zero-sum game, his approach viewed communication as a living, breathing system of mutual adaptation. Dr. Kamala Reyes presented ecological communication models that demonstrated how diverse systems could not just coexist, but thrive through mutual adaptation. Her presentation was simultaneously a scientific explanation, an artistic performance, and a computational algorithm. The alien analysts watched in growing confusion and fascination. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo's linguistic analysis revealed something profound. Human communication was not about transmission of information, but about creation of shared meaning. Each word, each gesture was an opportunity for mutual understanding. The communication chamber itself became a living testament to human potential. Walls shifted, holographic displays transformed. The very space of interaction was adaptive, responsive, alive. Ambassador Krulnax realized something fundamental. Humanity was not a civilization to be conquered or understood through traditional computational analysis. They were a living, breathing, constantly evolving system of potential. We have conquered thousands of civilizations, the ambassador's communication came. But the statement no longer sounded like a threat. It sounded like a confession. Sarah Chen's response was both an invitation and a challenge. Conquest is a failure of imagination, she transmitted. Connection is the true measure of intelligence. The human team had prepared for this moment not as a military confrontation, but as an opportunity for mutual transformation. Their goal was not victory, but understanding. Hours passed, or perhaps moments. Time became fluid in this space of interspecies communication. The Arcturus Imperium was learning something fundamental. Humanity's strength was not in its ability to destroy, but in its capacity to reimagine, to adapt, to connect. As the communication continued, one thing became clear. This was not a surrender. This was a beginning. Humanity was not just resisting. Humanity was inviting the galaxy to evolve. And nothing would ever be the same. Years after the encounter, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. The Arcturus Imperium, once a force of computational conquest, had been transformed. What began as an invasion became the most profound cultural exchange in galactic history. Humanity had not conquered. They had reimagined the very concept of interaction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the first joint human-Arcturus research station, watching stars that now seemed to pulse with potential. The station itself was a testament to possibility, a living structure that adapted and grew, part technological marvel, part collaborative ecosystem. Sarah Chen's quantum neural network had become something more than a defensive system. It was now the foundation of a new form of galactic communication, a bridge between species that once seemed impossibly different. Computational systems that had once been weapons of conquest now facilitated understanding. In the research laboratories, human and Arcturus scientists worked side by side. Their collaboration defied every previous understanding of interspecies cooperation. Where once there had been calculation, now there was curiosity. Where once there had been conquest, now there was connection. Miguel Ortiz had become a lead researcher in adaptive communication systems. The computational protocols he had developed during the initial conflict were now teaching civilizations across the galaxy how to truly communicate. His work drew from indigenous knowledge systems, showing that true understanding came from listening, not conquering. The transformation was not just technological. It was cultural, philosophical, fundamental. Planets that had once been conquered were now being restored. The Arcturus Imperium's vast resources, once used for destruction, were now being redirected towards ecological restoration, cultural preservation, mutual understanding. Entire civilizations that had been reduced to data points were being given the opportunity to thrive. Dr. Kamala Reyes led a team developing ecological communication models that could help species understand each other's fundamental needs. Her work demonstrated that diversity was not a challenge to be overcome, but a potential to be celebrated. Ambassador Krulnax, no longer a figure of computational conquest, but a representative of mutual understanding, spoke at a galactic conference. "We misunderstood," the ambassador communicated. Conquest is a failure of imagination. Connection is the true measure of intelligence. The words would have been impossible years earlier. In the Amazon Research Station, a new generation of scientists worked on projects that merged human creativity with Arcturus computational potential. They were not just studying the universe. They were reimagining it. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo's linguistic research had revealed something profound. Communication was not about transmission of information, but about creation of shared meaning. Each interaction was an opportunity for mutual growth, for collective understanding. The quantum neural network that had begun as Sarah Chen's prototype now facilitated communication across dozens of species. It was a living system of understanding, constantly evolving, constantly growing. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited the galaxy to evolve. The stars themselves seemed to celebrate this new era of collaboration. Civilizations that had been isolated for millennia were now sharing knowledge, resources, potential. The very concept of conquest had been replaced by a more complex understanding of coexistence. On the observation deck, Alina Rodriguez watched a new generation of human and Arcturus researchers working together. Young scientists whose very existence represented a future nobody could have imagined during the initial conflict. This was not an ending. This was a beginning. Humanity had shown the galaxy something fundamental. That true strength was not about destruction, but about connection. Not about winning, but about understanding. The universe was vast, but human potential was infinite, and everything was possible.